and then we'll get started with our, there you go. And then we'll get started with our presentations. 5 more innovators today to present and spotlight what they're doing in the digital health space. So thank you to the panelists for coming on. Really, really honored to have you all on. Some of you for a second and a third time this week. But I'll start off with our newcomer, Don Jones, who's a staunch supporter of all of our HITLAB events and is joining us today. Don, please introduce yourself and let everybody know what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Don Jones here. I'm part of something called the Cardiff Ocean Group, which I do advisory work and board work for PE and venture-backed companies. I'm also the Chief Digital Officer with Eric Topol at the Scripps Translational Research Institute, and I'm an operating partner with Takeda Digital Ventures. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Don. And just in order, as I can see you, Nathan. Hello again.
Good to see you again, Jerry. Hi, everyone. Nathan Sondheimer here. I work for Plug and Play, where I lead U.S. healthcare partnerships and run our digital health accelerator. We're an early stage investor. We kind of serve as a catalyst of innovation between corporates and startups, and we also run accelerators all around the world. But thanks again for having me today.
No, our pleasure. Thank you, Nathan. And last but again, certainly not least, Philip Linville from Cobalt.
Hi, nice to meet you. Philip Linville, principal with Cobalt Ventures. We are the corporate venture capital group of Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City, investing off of Blue KC's balance sheet in digital health, early stage digital health companies.
Wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen. Lovely to have you all on today, and lovely to have our audience join us as well. And without further ado, we're going to move on over to our first presenter. Just as a reminder, we have 5 different innovators today who are going to present their digital health solutions to the panel, and they'll have a total of 10 minutes each, including Q&A from both the panel and the audience. So we will start off with Mark Gelfers from Blue Note Therapeutics. Hello, Mark.
Hello, how's it going, Jerry? Great to see you.
Yep, you too, you too. I will let you take it away.
All right, thanks so much. I'm going to share a screen. Appreciate everyone joining and hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. My name is Mark Gelfers. I'm from Blue Note Therapeutics. We are prescription digital therapeutics for cancer-related distress. And as we sit, we're the leader in oncology digital therapeutics. We have the largest licensed pipeline of clinical interventions, where we have collaborations with the global leaders in psycho-oncology, US national payers and oncology networks, and our lead product, Attune, is on path for an FDA approval in Q4 of 2023. The total economic problem of cancer-related distress exceeds $10 billion annually in the US alone. But we know all cancer patients suffer from some level of distress, and with more than 18 million cancer patients and survivors in the US, it's just a mountain of people that are really struggling. 50 to 70% of these folks have clinically meaningful or ICD-10 codable psychological distress, like depression, anxiety, fear of cancer recurrence, chronic pain, chronic insomnia, sexual dysfunction. But sadly, about 80% of all patients and survivors have no access to cancer-specific mental health care. And this manifests in more healthcare visits, more ER visits, an increased risk of hospitalization and extended stays, about $15,000 additional annual cost for those patients with distress, and probably more importantly, medically, lower adherence rates, and then at the end of the day, increased mortality rates. This is not a new problem or a problem that Blue Note kind of stumbled upon after we made a cool app. Published treatment guidelines are clear. Oncologists should be screening for and treating cancer-related distress, and you see guidelines coming out of the Institute of Medicine, the NCCN, the American Society of Clinical Oncology, the College of Surgeons Commission on Cancer Accreditation Standards, and CMS's Oncology Care Model. I mean, like we'll probably hear from other folks, there's just not enough folks that can provide this kind of care, and we've just got the supply and demand challenge. So our product development process, we start with in-licensing validated interventions that have been proven to work face-to-face, that have been created by psycho-oncologists in universities around the country. We sit down with the designers and developers and those clinical investigators and say, hey, let's digitize this entire therapeutic content. We sit down with patients along the way, and this loop leads us into a pretty cool intervention that starts with something that works, sits down with those patients, and then iterates on it until we've got something that we can get out into the wild. Attune is our first product. It's the first cancer-specific digital device is the regulatory term, but guys, it's a prescription app or digital medicine that treats anxiety and depression. It's based on an intervention called cognitive behavioral stress management. This behavioral intervention is a 10-session individual or group setting behavioral intervention that was created by the folks at the Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center in Miami, Florida. And it was studied in breast cancer patients and prostate cancer patients, in Spanish-speaking individuals and English-speaking individuals. Ton of research that proves this thing works. We got an FDA breakthrough designation in June of 2020, and we've got a handful of clinical trials running around the country right now. I've got a video that I'm going to run for you. It's a 2-minute video. Just give me a thumbs up if the audio works, because sometimes that can be a little glitchy.
Introducing Attune, the first digital therapeutic program designed specifically for anxiety and depression related to cancer.
Welcome. I'm Dr. Michael Antoni. I've dedicated my career to helping cancer patients manage their stress, and I'd like to share some lessons and techniques that have been shown to be effective through over 20 years of research. Using randomized trials, we found that cancer patients completing this program improved their quality of life and reduced anxiety and depression during treatment. They also had better physical and mental health outcomes up to 10 years later.
Based on Dr. Antoni's clinically validated program for people with cancer, Attune uses cognitive behavioral stress management, or CBSM, to help you reduce stress and improve your coping skills. The program consists of a set of 10 self-paced sessions, each focused on a different topic and building on the sessions before it. The concepts and skills are introduced in an accessible way, using animation, and reinforced through guided exercises with supportive responses. Dr. Mona Azadfalinov serves as your guide through the Attune experience.
As a cancer survivor myself, I know firsthand how cancer affects daily life and the ability to cope with stress.
You'll learn about and practice stress management techniques, relaxation skills, and ways to deal with stress in a healthy and effective manner. You can always go back to your completed exercises and previous sessions. And if you feel like you need more help, just touch the help button at the bottom of the screen for additional support resources. Attune gives you the lifelong skills to help manage stress at every point, from diagnosis to treatment and beyond. Attune is designed to make a meaningful difference in the lives of cancer patients everywhere.
Okay, guys, that's about my 5-minute point. I want to pause and get anyone's questions, and I really appreciate everyone's attention.
Wonderful, Mark. Thank you very much for that great presentation. Over to you, judges. Panelists, I should say. Any questions, guys?
Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate the presentation. Appreciate all the things that you're doing with Attune. Just a real quick question to kick us off. Just to make sure I understand, can anyone download this, or does it have to be prescribed, as you previously mentioned?
Right now, it's prescribed, so you can see Attune in the App Store, but you can't unlock it unless you have a digital, unless you have a code from our digital prescription service called iAssist.
When it's prescribed, do you bill through claims, or is this billed as an administrative expense? And I guess that kind of gets into a second question around your revenue model.
So we're pre-revenue. So right now, all of our prescriptions are either through a commercial pilot where there is no fee to either the patient, the provider, or the payer. But we have a couple of different models that we're talking to a couple of different payers. Have not yet landed on that. But we the leading assumption is that payers pay per download. So essentially, as soon as the patient downloads it, it triggers a claim to the payer.
Okay, and it would be billed through claims.
Would be billed through claims is our assumption right now.
Okay, and do you plan to attack the market through the payers or through oncologists, through the provider
We've got two
systems?
different channels for that. Through the oncologist to the patient is one way, and one of our commercial pilots is with a U.S. Oncology Network clinic, so we're able to kind of test drive that in that commercial setting. We also have another opportunity to work with payers through kind of a care navigation channel, where the payer says, "Hey, I'm gonna identify folks that I know are high cost and high risk, and through a digital service provide them things like Attune and some PRO services." So there are a couple of different ways at this channel. It's also important to note that there's a group of patients that are in the inpatient setting with going through acute leukemias. There may be another opportunity there for us to serve patients in that inpatient setting, selling to provider systems like hospitals.
Mark, as Don, any discussion around bundling it with live services? So you have the Attune model combined with the professional services as a bundle?
Yeah, there's a couple of things there, Don. Thanks for that question. For cancer centers that have, no kidding, professional services like psycho-oncologists on staff, we know that they will use this as a place to help folks get care while they're on their 2 or 3 month wait list, and the physician can get some, or the provider can get some care to them before they can sit down face to face. But for most of the clinics that have no one at all, then we imagine Attune as a standalone, or using the Attune in-app peer-to-peer communication feature. There may be some opportunity for us to add additional value there with an Attune graduate or a licensed mental health counselor or a psych. I hesitate to say psychologist because there's so few of them. It would be fanciful for us to say, and we're gonna hire a bunch of psychologists, but someone that can provide a little bit of love and a little bit of guidance throughout the application is in our testing plan for the first half of next year.
A little harder to scale, but have you thought about going directly to employer groups?
Phil, the average age of cancer patients 66. So, if we went to employer groups, that would cut off about half of if we just said, we're deliberately going to go to employer groups, it kind of cuts off half of the patient population. And most employers don't have a ton of employees. So there's only 450 cancer patients and 100,000 lives. It's just, for us, we thought about that because that question comes up a lot, Phil. It's just hard to know why that's a better call plan than to oncology clinics.
Well, I may challenge that a little bit. I mean, there's a company in the market called Caroloop. I'm not sure if you've seen Caroloop, but it's the same model. They're not in the oncology space, but it's care navigation and management for dependents of employees. And they found that employer groups are willing to add that as an ancillary. I'm not sure if pricing is if you might, what the anticipated pricing is of the product, you may price people out of the market. But they've seen good traction in the employer group of employers willing to pay for those ancillary benefits for their employees, dependents, and loved ones.
Yeah, it's a good push, Phil. The cancer caregiver world is huge, and if you just think about the employee has a family, and if the employer is willing to add those benefits to everyone, then you've got a different path.
Helping to manage that care is a time-intensive resource or
it's an
activity, I would imagine.
For sure. Jerry, I know you gave me 10 minutes. I hope I didn't disappoint you too much.
No, thank you very much, Mark. Wonderful presentation. Unfortunately, we don't have any more time for questions. So Nathan, we'll start with you next round. Thank you very much, Mark, for bringing us Blue Note Therapeutics and Attune. And I'm going to pass
Thanks so
over
much,
to,
y'all.
Dr.
Hopefully we get a
Manisha
chance to
Vora.
talk with you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And we'll pass over to Dr. Manisha Vora of Linus Biotechnology.
Thank you, Jerry. Can you confirm that you can see my slides?
Yep, we can see them.
Yep, great. Let me jump into presentation mode. So it's a pleasure to be here to introduce Linus Biotechnology. It's a spin out from the Mount Sinai Health System, and I'm one of the co-founders. So at the beginning of this journey that led to the formation of Linus is a simple but a very difficult question. The past few decades have really been the era of genomics, but what lies beyond genomics? And I like to show this graph that a friend of mine had generated, showing that, for many common conditions, the non-genetic component to the causality exceed what the genetic component is. And that's really the realm where Linus exists. We're creating this massive data set of precision molecular phenotyping biomarkers that are beyond what genomics can provide. But as soon as you say non-genomics, there's a problem that exists. It's a big problem but it is often an ignored problem, and that is a problem of time. Let me explain that statement in a little more detail. The day I was conceived, my basic genomic sequence was, set in stone. So I know what my genomic sequence is from a single snapshot technology. But I don't know what all the non-genomic components are from any snapshot technology because my physiology is always humming. We are always constantly moving at a molecular level. Let me show you this with a simple sort of cartoon here. Whenever we start a study, whether it's a clinical trial or therapy, whatever we are doing, what was this person doing at a molecular level a few months ago, a few years ago, or many years ago? And here we see that it's full of black boxes. We'd be lucky if we had 1 or 2 blood samples lying around somewhere that we could analyze. What the Linus technology does is it removes all of these black boxes. I can go back many years in time and build a molecular profile that is of 4 to 6 hourly resolution. It's like saying we can reconstruct 2,000 liquid biopsies, but all from a single sample collected at home, and it's a non-invasive collection. That's a bold statement to make. So let me show you some real data. What does this technology, what can it achieve? What does it really do? So here, there's a person who walks in, and whatever we are doing with them, whether we are treating them in a clinic or enrolling them in a clinical trial, whatever we are doing, we do a blood test, and it looks pretty normal. And we measure thousands of compounds. I'm just throwing up one which is of interest to me recently. It's called tin, but it could be anything. It could be C-reactive protein. It could be inflammation. It could be some chemical exposure. Well, I really don't know what happened to this person 2 years ago. And I certainly would come up with some average estimate, but I don't want that. I know human physiology operates at an hourly to daily level. You apply the Linus technology and it removes this black box, and we certainly have 2,000 time points of direct measurements. These are not extrapolated data. So that's what I mean by saying that we have the ability to regenerate 2,000 liquid biopsies, but going back in time. The theory behind this is very deep, and perhaps this is just a little bit of shameless self-promotion, but we published, the founders and I published a book on this. So if anyone's interested how we are doing this, there it is. That's the technology. What is the company about? Well, the company's mission is to bring this to the people. And recently we received an FDA breakthrough designation. That was a big day for us, because for a condition like autism spectrum disorder that impacts 2% of the population, there is no FDA-approved biomarker. This is the first technology that can be applied from birth onwards. We already have several major pharma contracts for autism trials as well. Our IP runs very deep because unlike many companies, we're not just developing the data analysis part, we have actually generated our own hardware over the many years. So we have our own laser and robotic systems that allow us to generate this temporally dense data. We measure many, many things, but we measure them at many, many times. And because of that, we have a lot of innovation on our data science side as well. And we are truly an international operations. We're now building a database that includes participants from 10 different countries. So what do you do when you have a platform like this, a really core technology? Well, we can develop biomarkers. We can start looking at clinical endpoints in clinical trials for diseases where there were no endpoints before, or molecular endpoints. We can discover new compounds, and we can also be patient-facing. And that's exactly what Linus is doing. We have a phase 2 trial underway for an autism drug. As I mentioned before, we have a breakthrough designation for the first biomarker that can aid in diagnosis at birth. It's trademarked as StrandDX. We are helping with another clinical trial, and we have a bunch of partnership with networks. But the partnership I'm most proud of, and something that means a lot, especially at this forum, is my partnership with Glenn DeVries, who posthumously introduced this summit. He was a good friend of mine, and even though he's passed away, our collaboration will continue. So that was an overview. Let me just take the last minute I have to show you how we are impacting the autism field. For those of you who are not familiar with this, it impacts 2% of the population. It's a big public health emergency. No biomarker exists. Since we have the first-in-class biomarker, we want to help those 500,000 infants that are born every year at risk of this condition. And that is one of the core missions. Even though we are a platform company and not necessarily an autism company, autism is of big importance to us. And I always stress that we are not just a diagnostic company. We actually identify pathways, as I'm showing you an example here, which allows us to do many things, and often we can do them at high accuracy. One example, again, from autism is that our biomarker is 90% accurate at birth in identifying those who are at risk of autism. I know I'm almost out of time, so I'll just end with this slide, giving you an overview of various clinical pipelines and the depth of our patent portfolio. Again, it's such an honor to be here. Thank you, Jerry, for inviting me, and I would welcome any questions.
No, wonderful. Thank you, Manish, for that wonderful presentation and giving us some insight as to what you're doing right now. Nathan, I know you weren't able to ask a question in the last round, so I'll start off with you, and then maybe one other in this 2 minutes or so we have for questions.
Sure, thanks, Jerry. Appreciate it. And Manish, incredible technology. I'm still trying to wrap my head around all of it. But just to kind of get us started, who are your ideal customers? Because obviously you said you want this in the hands of everybody. Who are your initial customers? Is it pharma, payer, provider? Who would that be? So
we're working along those work streams. So we already have contracts with pharma companies who are saying, well, you know, I have a drug which I know will work in autism in mice, but when I take it to humans, it's the added problem of not having a molecular biomarker. Autism is diagnosed in questionnaire. So is ADHD and schizophrenia and so many other conditions. So now we can help pharmaceutical companies with molecular endpoints. However, we don't want to just be of service to pharmaceutical companies. We want to lead the way. So we are also saying along the way, because we identify specific pathways, we'll help you map to new compounds. But it's the third thing I'm about to say, which always raises eyebrows. We're also saying that we're bringing in a new type of clinical trial design. You don't have to conduct a new trial. Let's say you finished a trial 2 years ago. There was some success, but it wasn't enough. Well, I can resurrect that trial because I can go back in time and look at the molecular phenotype of those participants who succeeded in the trial and those who failed. On average, the trial might have looked like a failure, but there might be subgroups who you missed that we can resurrect. That's one area. The other area is very much helping the patients. You know, every child should get this test for a condition that is of 2% prevalence. Eventually, when every newborn will undergo this test, because they do that already for conditions that are far less prevalent.
Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. We have time for one very quick question if the judges have any.
Yeah, Manish is done. I'm still trying to get my head around this as well, but it seems to me you're providing a view back in history, and I'm wondering how you line this up with the longitudinal medical history across the board as you essentially establish a new biomarker. How do you then tie that to correlations to the longitudinal medical that may have been established over a period of years?
That's exactly what we are planning to do with Medidata. That's what our collaboration is. So we build this history going back in time with thousands of time points, thousands of biomarkers, and hospital systems like Mount Sinai, where we have a collaboration, or Medidata, they have some clinical history. So we're operating at 2 levels. We are merging the molecular level with the clinical level. And, you know, we are very good these days at saying this is what you look like to a clinician, but we are still not that good at saying this is what you look like at a molecular level. I believe there's great potential at the intersection of those two data sets.
And then
that-
how do
that's
you translate that into a monetization business model?
So like I said, pharmaceutical companies and drug trials, that's one. However, for example, if you want to say, I want to develop, or I want to deliver therapy to an autistic child currently, you're giving one label to a condition that probably has a dozen different diseases lumped together. We can molecularly phenotype that person and say, you match to this therapy, just like we do in precision oncology. Gone are the days when you just had cancer and everybody got the same chemotherapeutic drug. Now we are going to have precision CNS therapy. We'll also help in monitoring therapy, which pathways are being impacted, which are not, because that is missing from most CNS disorders.
Thank you.
Thank you, Manish. I wish we had more time for questions, but unfortunately we do have to move on to Eric. Thank you, Manish, for your time and your presentation. And I'm going to hand over to Eric from Generable now.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you see me and hear me okay? Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate you having me. So my name is Eric Novick. I'm from Generable. I'm going to give you a quick overview of Generable. No slides, just me talking. So we have a computational oncology platform, which I think is unique. We have spun out from Columbia University Statistics Department, where along with some collaborators, we've co-developed a probabilistic programming language that is now being used in lots of different places, and in particular in pharmaceutical R&D. And so the platform that we're building is around that technology. Here's the problem. You know, in oncology clinical trials, if you look at the late phase trials and phase 3 trials in oncology, an estimated 75% of them fail, which is an enormous failure rate relative to the amount of investment that goes into these drugs. In comparison, about 80% of vaccine trials succeed in phase 3. So something is not quite working. And you know, before we get like a miracle drug in oncology, which doesn't seem to be likely, you know, we attribute this problem to a very poor decision making in early phases, right, where lots of candidates enter the trials. There's so all this exciting things that's happening in discovering targets and so on. But ultimately, they go through this filter from phase 1 trial and first in human trials, and you know, they look at sort of the early responders, and everybody gets excited, and they run the trials forward, and the majority of them fail. So we've developed a platform that takes data from completed clinical trials in various disease areas. In treatments like chemotherapies, targeted therapies, IO therapies. And we train our model on those completed trials. We also encode the mechanism of disease, or in our case, the dynamic model of cancer, of tumor spread into the model. And then we use that along with some of the early data from early trials to get a much better prediction of the probability of efficacy in the next trial, ultimately in phase 3. And by doing that, we have been validating these studies. We have publications that show that we can make quite a bit of improvements over the current methods. We were funded by contracts for pharmaceutical companies, R&D contracts. So we have not raised institutional money, and in collaboration with our pharma partners, we were able to kind of prove out the models, prove out the technology, and are now starting to work with the early stage biotechnology companies, starting with their animal trials and first in human trials, as well as the pharmaceutical companies in their oncology drug development, to improve on this early stage decision making framework. So that's, in a nutshell, is general.
Wonderful, Eric. Thank you very much for coming on and giving us that presentation on General. Do you have any questions from the panel?
When do you guys anticipate coming to market?
So we are in market now. We have a contract now with a public biotech company where we are doing, they're using our platform for dosing studies, and actually we're just at SITC, which is one of the two big immuno-oncology conferences, where they presented some of the results from their phase 2 trial using our analyses, and we're in pilot mode with one large pharma company. So we're just sort of getting to the commercialization stage, and it's still quite early, but we already have a couple of paying customers.
All right.
And your business model that you're using with them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of a standard B2B tech-enabled services where they get to use our platform and some of our background data combined with their data, and we essentially price it kind of per molecular combination on a yearly basis.
Awesome. Also, I know you said you're still kind of early in this process, but what are your and General goals for the next 6 months? What sort of milestones you're looking to achieve?
I mean, right now, really, it's like we've been doing a lot of R&D and kind of heads down testing a lot of these models in different types of indications, and really we're now ready to start scaling up and putting the platform out there and getting more customers in. So our goals are really on business development side is to add 4 to 5 new customers over the next 6 months.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, wonderful, guys. If there's no other questions, I think that brings us to time. Pretty perfectly, Eric. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jerry. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for coming on and letting us know a bit more about General. And I'm going to move the mic over to David Hall from TAMP.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much, Jerry. David Hall, CEO of TAMP. 10 former startups, 2 exits, former Harvard University, former Indiana University Medical Center. I thought it was important to begin with the economic forces, the cultural and social forces, and the technology forces that brought us to where we are and that created this window of opportunity in digital health innovation. Used to be when a doctor started out, they would get their MD degree and they're pretty much good to go for about 40 years. Welcome to Moore's Law, the doubling effect, exponential growth. We've all seen it during this pandemic. Its acceleration has accelerated another 5 or 10 years. So it's just impossible for doctors to read 4,000 or 5,000 journals, to scan millions of MRIs and CAT scans, to visit every patient's house. We've seen telehealth visits up 25,000% in some hospitals. And everyone's kind of learning this together, doctors, patients, the companies that are providing the services, you, the investors. And we say that emerging tech might not replace doctors, but doctors with emerging tech will replace doctors without. So augmented doctors, or we like to say enabled doctors, can keep pace. They can remain the experts. Nearly every healthcare institution has at least some plans about 95%, at least for some type of communications platform, some types of collaboration platform. They're all looking to innovate. Investors like yourself this year alone began pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into digital health. We had our first digital health IPOs this year, multi-billion-dollar IPOs. I just saw yesterday Best Buy made a $400 million acquisition of a digital health company in Scotland. Was the second largest exit in Scotland of digital health company. So Dr. Digital Innovation has now catapulted to the top. So we say, why do doctors need digital upskilling, and who says that? Well, nearly everybody, nearly every government, NGO, academic institution says that it's crucial for doctors and healthcare workers to have the proper skills to be able to navigate in this digital VUCA environment. The European Union, the Standing Doctors Committee of Europe, WHO, and nearly every organization. Digital upskilling is one of the most important requirements for 10 million doctors and about 40 million healthcare workers. It has increased doctor stress and burnout. So doctors having to deal with not being involved in the innovative process. Even the digital giants have acknowledged the reason that they failed IBM Watson, Google Health, is because they did not involve the doctors. They did not take a human-centered design approach. They're now circling back around and taking exactly this approach that we've been working on perfecting for many years. What's next? We now have patients experiencing similar pains that the doctors are facing because of these forces with regard to digital health innovation. And it's created a growing trillion-dollar market. Digital health is about $600 billion of this market. Now, digital value-based healthcare is a reality. So we have the government pressures, regulatory pressures. Now I'm going to move into getting this started. Let's talk about our digital health innovation platform and how we plan to solve this. Again, the doctor's pains are society's pains. We solve the doctor's pains, we solve society's pain. We only have 10 million doctors. It's costly stress and burnout, about $400,000 to $600,000 per healthcare institution. In worst cases, one doctor suicide per day in the United States alone. And we have strong unmet demand for doctor digital upskilling that we believe is part of these pains. So our Doctor First digital health innovation platform will enable 10 million doctors through digital innovation upskilling programs. These are doctors sharing their real life experiences with other doctors. They're then able to better engage patients through our corporate employee wellness programs. And then they're able to adopt that must-have digital technology through a doctor-led, trusted market network, and then innovate their own digital health solutions through a doctor-led InnovaHub, which is an innovation hub where doctors co-design, co-create together with our partner providers. Now our secret sauce, we've moved through these economic forces, through this history from hardware to SaaS to software, software as a service, and now we're in the digital era. We believe processes are the most important, and we've been working on scientific models and proprietary approaches to integrate these areas for many years. We've worked with a core team of 10, extended team of about 80. Many of our advisors, our founding advisory doctors, diverse expert advisors have worked with us for 5-6 years. We founded this company about 2 years ago and continue to work to build our global digital ecosystem, which is our network, our alliances of alliances, and our doctor community. Now, we're both a painkiller and a vitamin. We reduce that doctor stress and burnout. We improve patient care delivery and outcomes. And we reduce costs, increase revenues, and begin to build a sustainable ecosystem. Now, as I mentioned, this is a growing and transforming trillion-dollar market. We plan to take 3% of each of these three markets, and we don't believe you can do it alone. We believe there must be integrated, and you must have an end-to-end solution, beginning with the healthcare education market that's transforming to a virtual market, it's transforming to a digital market. 3% of the corporate wellness market and 3% of the healthcare tech market, 820 billion, which I mentioned earlier, 600 billion alone is digital health. Now, we're the only doctor-first total solution. And the reason I wanted to show those forces behind this movement and the integration of these three areas is because it's very important. It cannot be done in isolation. We cover digital upskilling programs, we cover digital tech market network, and the digital innovation platform as a total solution. And as you can see here, we have competitors in each area. Actually, several have become partners, and we believe potentially we can partner with all of the ones that we have listed here as competitors. Now, that's the ecosystem. The model is very, very simple. We have three targets: medical associations, healthcare institutions, and large corporations. We call it a win-win-win revenue sharing model. We have a service product and we have a technology product. The service product is the Digital Innovation Upskilling Program. It's $499 for a 12-week program for members and employees, $999 for non-members, non-employees. And then we have a technology product. It's $1 to $3 per association members per month, and $5 per corporate employee per month. Now, we've gone through many stages already: MVP, launch, alpha, beta, product market fit in 2021. We're ready to grow and scale in 2022. We have 4 signed medical association alliances with 65,000 doctors. We actually just added a verbal agreement for another 10,000 doctors yesterday. We're on track to bring in about 250,000 US dollars by the end of this year. We're expanding our global footprint and growing this network of tech partner providers. Now, the alliances are very important because these are strong, close-knit alliances. We onboard about 500 doctors at a time. We have 500 already in, and we have another 500 doctors onboarding in the next month or two. Now, our ask for the next 12 months is financing in the amount of 1.2 million US dollars. This is for 20% shares, or 2 million shares, to continue this doctor innovation movement. We have a plan to exit within the next few years with a sale to like a Johnson & Johnson or a Mayo Clinic, large healthcare institution. Now, I mentioned our core team of 10. We are 3 co-founders, a core team of 10, extended team of 80. I won't go over everyone here, but just to let you know, many have worked, as I mentioned, 5-6 years with us. We started this company 2 years ago, and we've been working pretty much 24/7. Just a few famous kind of notable names. We have Dr. Innovators. We have ambassador to the European Union, who's also a medical association founder. We have a Harvard doctor who won the Nobel Prize of Marketing, they call it. Their TED Talks about him. We have the former vice president of product at Doximity, which is a doctor community that just went IPO, and WebMD, and many other CIOs of governments around the world, and many diverse technology and domain know-how experts. TAMP is enabling doctors through the Digital Innovation Upskilling Program, engaging patients through our corporate employee wellness program, adopting those digital technologies through a trusted doctor-led market network, and then innovating digital health in our Innova Hub. So it's TAMP, the doctor-first digital health innovation platform. Thank you very much, and I'll open it up for any questions or comments. Thank you.
Wonderful, David. Thank you very much. We have time for 1 or 2 very quick questions from the panel.
Yeah, I just have one quick question. David, thank you for your time. Can you actually define what this like digital upscaling is? So, I mean, obviously you're introducing them to new technologies. Is it just saying this is what's out there on the market, or is this the best practice? And then you said it's like that 12-week program, but are they gonna have to pay that $4.99, that $5.99? Let's just say you can take one class in Q1 and you could take another class in Q4. It could be totally different content, but what does that actually look like?
Yeah, very good question. Because this was the #1 pain as identified by all those organizations, there are only about 10 to 15 programs globally. Nobody had decided to create the future. We stepped up and we defined what those, together with our team of 80, defined what those digital skills look like and what those core competencies look like. They involve beginning with new mindsets. So we believe that a mindset is one of the most important: design thinking mindset, exponential thinking mindset. Then we move into digital literacy, digital intelligence, we call DQ. And from there, it's doctors sharing their real life experiences, real life applications. So these are the scientific models, proprietary approaches that we've developed over many, many years. We were the owner of a multinational company, learning and development company, for many, many years. And so we developed models such as flipped learning, deliberate practice, and other scientific models that we bring into this platform. So we're building it into the technology workflow that is part of the service product and the technology product. They work hand in hand in an integrated model.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, guys. I'm sorry we don't have any more time for questions. We are getting very close to time now. So thank you very much, David, for that tremendous presentation.
Thank you.
Pass over now to Rich Boyajian from Mass General.
Now, let me just see if I can share my screen here. All right, here we go. Okay. So I want to thank everyone and Jerry particularly for getting me into this. And I'm honored to present again, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing here at the Dana-Farber Brigham Cancer Center in regards to prostate cancer follow-up. So one of the things that, and I'm sure you're acutely aware, I think one of the things healthcare has to do is start thinking outside of this one-to-one relationship where in-person visits just translate to one virtual visit. And a lot of that has to do with revenue stream and whatnot, but as a bunch of the presenters earlier said, it doesn't address any of the healthcare provider shortage. What I'm trying to tell people is it needs to be a one-to-many, almost like a database association, but that's and that way you can service more patients and care for a higher volume of patients with less FTEs. So what we've tried to do, basically.
I'm sorry, Rich, you meant to be sharing your screen here.
Oh, I'm not?
Not right now.
Let's try that again.
Yep,
there we go. Sorry about that. Now let me pull up. I've got 3 screens, so I'm just trying to pull up the right one here. Sorry. Go. No, I apologize, folks. All right, there we go. So what I was saying is basically our goal was the traditional model is really antiquated, and we're trying to transform that to allow increased access to care was the basic goal of this when we started out. And what we tried to do is combine different types of software, if you will, into one, because what I found out when creating this is that everyone's doing a little bit of each, but it's not, they're in silos and they don't communicate to each other. And we've got, care management, automation, clinical decision-making, and also what's critical, and you've heard from everyone, is the patient-provider connection, the communications. And we've tried to kind of fill that niche. So again, if a quick background, a lot of guys get prostate cancer, #1 cancer besides skin cancer in the United States. So lots of people get it. It's very survivable. People live for years and years, but because there can be late relapses, they require lifelong PSA monitoring. And that's great. That's a good thing. There's lots of survivors. But when you think about the whole journey, if you will, you think about, I'm going to just tell you, Norm gets diagnosed with high risk prostate cancer, and he wants to see the greatest doctor of all time. But this guy, Dr. Brady's backed up for 3 to 4 weeks because he's doesn't have any open consult slots. And you can imagine all the anxiety and the fear, not only that Norm feels, but every surrounding, his family and friends, about what's going to go on. Am I going to die? And so that waiting period is very difficult. And from a market standpoint, usually getting them in quicker, who sees them first tends to be the person that treats them too. So the problem is, and again, this is a very simple problem that every doctor has. They have limited time to see the new patients because they're spending so much time with the patients in follow-up. And in prostate cancer, that's particularly obvious. That so he finishes treatment and he gets here. So Psa Surveillance. So I'm in Boston, so I have someone from Connecticut that has to drive, few hours now to sit down for 15 minutes at most with the doctor to talk about a blood test and their symptoms. And, and that's not factoring in all the other things with, travel expenses and whatnot. So this isn't not the ideal model. So what we did is we offered them to stay in the usual care model, which was coming in, up to 4 times a year to review that PSA, or to do our virtual clinic. And so surprisingly, 92% of the guys in our pilot wanted to do the virtual care, and the doctors were a little taken aback. But how it works is we get an electronic referral. The data is automatically extracted from the EMR. Our assistant goes to work, uses our search by zip code lab finder to try and keep as many patients within our system so that not only do we contain revenue, but also this reports directly into our EMR, which is extracted directly into our platform. Then she contacts the patient and discusses all this. And the last thing she'll do is set up the reminder to be sent out in a later date to the patient. Patient receives a reminder, says get their PSA done and to fill out the symptom survey attached. That gets automatically uploaded into our system. We'll call them algorithms or AI. What they do is they perform a triage of these patients. And again, it stratifies them into 3 categories by urgency. And the first 2, PSA relapse and people with significant symptoms, they require a provider to contact them directly. So whether that be a Zoom visit or a telephone call, it's something that needs to be discussed and into more detail. But then there's this sweet spot of people, and this is a lot of the men, where they have no evidence of disease and no significant symptoms. We target them with electronic communication first. So their first interaction is, you're doing well. If you want to talk about anything more, click on this and we can schedule a visit. So then what happens is the provider finishes out that encounter, and then what happens is a note is automatically generated from our platform, which gets placed into the EMR. And then basically we fill the loop again and the provider schedules the next one. So this is just telling you that they love it. The doctors have been able to actually, compared to before we started this, which was FY19 is the data. I haven't done the latest 2 year. Oh, excuse me. Basically, we've increased 110% in consults because of the because I freed the docs up so much from seeing their follow-up patients by reducing 24% in that same period. So basically, FY19 compared to FY15, there's been 110% increase and 24% reduction in follow-ups. The patients love it, saves them money. It also helps them. One of the biggest things is with major centers like, Columbia or, Dana-Farber, they want to stay connected with the academic centers. Again, saves money. This is just telling you that in COVID, it was very beneficial for us because we already had an established program, and it was easier to transition patients immediately to our program. But this is the one that got me got the hospital's attention. So this was our revenue growth, gross revenue growth, percentage-wise, and then I finally did some digging, and basically we grew in FY16 by 26% our gross revenue of prostate cancer patients. And then the next year it was more modest at about 13.2%. But the reason they were even more impressed by this was we had actually lost one full-time physician in FY17. So the remaining doctors picked up the slack and were able to actually grow the practice. And then we did lose some money in FY18 because we were still down that physician, and we reorganized our brachytherapy program. And then again in FY19, we went up 24.3%. So this is what got my chief financial officer of the department interested in this, that we were able to help. We were part of increasing revenue across in regards to prostate cancer. And the reason that this is it's got to continue is because the reason we've only reduced it 24% is because those new consults become treated patients, and then they fill that void that we're emptying. So it's a constant stream of patients. This is just telling you this is where our different patients are. We service all over the world. Thank you. And then this is our future direction. So let me see if I can get out of that and stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Rich. That brings us nicely almost towards the end, and some final questions from the panel.
Yeah, Rich is done. It sounds to me like what you've done is you're freeing up time and you're exchanging what would have been a kind of a low-level E&M visit for reviewing the PSA to an opportunity to see more new patients. Is that basically the economics you're driving?
That's basically the economic driver of it. Yes, it works very well in radiation oncology. It would work well in urology because of the lump sum payments that they get per treated patient. And we've done the cost analysis, the actual reduction in those low-level visits. We more than broke even by making up for it with the consults.
Do you also justify that because you're in some kind of value-based or payment system where you're not going to get paid more, or would you?
Well, this is going to become even more valuable when you're right. There's going to be cost containment measures and even changes in radiation oncology, the way we deliver it, because it's paid by treatment. Now, when we go to what we call hypofractionated, meaning they get less treatments, higher dose, less treatments, that means less reimbursement. So yeah, it's even, I'm also, it's funny that you say that, but I've been advising a group out of Canada, and they're actually want to actually build the, using my framework, build their NED clinic software to manage the Canadian prostate cancer survivors in a similar way, which would be even more valuable for them.
Have you explored looking at actually turning your whole program into a remote therapy management program and going for additional reimbursement?
Yes, I have thought about it. I should say I've thought about it. I haven't explored it.
Okay.
You know, and the question would be whether we would want to just sell the software to departments and whatnot to manage their own, or would we really want to get into the service industry? Because my goal would be we've already begun discussions about managing other cancer-related diagnoses, as well as testosterone replacement therapy and things like that. Really, there's a lot of, I'll call them low-lying fruit that aren't super complex. You know, I came from bone marrow transplant. There's a lot going on there. Prostate cancer, it's, you know, there's a few variables you got to keep track of. But yes, I'm looking to move. We're collaborating with a couple of people to try and improve our end user experience and increase our communication modalities so we can get ready for prime time and actually come to market.
Wonderful, Rich. Thank you. Any very, very final quick questions from the panel before we close off?
No, thank you very much. I have to sign off for a 3 o'clock meeting, but this was great. Thank you for allowing me to participate.
No,
Thank you, Jerry.
No, thank you.
I've got to jump to another meeting too.
No, thank you guys for all coming on.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Really, really wonderful panel. Thank you guys all for participating, and thank you everybody else for attending and tuning in to our final Innovator Showcase for the day and for the week. So thank you again, Don and Nathan. I know you're still here, and see you again on the next HITLAB event.